hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about a Tesla, and it's going to be like a series of videos. So the first one is like a Tesla primer, where we just spend like a few minutes to talk about the company, about Elon Musk and stuff like that. So firstly, before we get started, Shashank, thank you for joining and thank you for your time. And I think most people who know me know that I'm very passionate about Tesla and a big fan of Elon Musk as well. And I'm sure Shashank, you too are. So, or if not a fan, you're probably an enthusiast at least, right? So you are interested in the technology and the work and stuff like that the company does. So let's get started, Shashank. So Shashank, do you want to talk a little bit about as part of the primer video, a little bit about the history of the roadster and stuff like that, please?
Sure. Hey, it's an absolute pleasure to come back here and talk to you again. It's always been fun. Talking about Tesla, it's one company I have admired, have been inspired by, and I think it's a company that's fundamentally out there to change the world. I still remember hearing about Tesla on this show called Top Gear. Growing up, I was an absolute motorhead, and they introduced this car, which was supposed to be a Lotus Elise, which got completely had a gut renovation, to say the least. They removed the engine, everything, and put in a battery pack, and it was the first electrical car, which ran, first car on batteries that ran for more than a few miles. I think I could be wrong here, but it was something between 100 and 150 miles or something like that. And I also remember seeing that video and the car basically running out of juice on the track. It became a very controversial video. There's a lot to read about it. People can read on their own on that. But that car, it's supposed to be a disaster, but something sparked interest in me, and I started reading about Tesla, and I was like, oh my God, this is something different out there. Then started reading about Tesla, and that car basically got in production. People started loving it, but that was still collaboration with Lotus, and it was not really a true Tesla car. The first true Tesla car came out with the Model S, which was a sedan. People started using it. There was this one bad review in New York Times where the writer said that they had to stop all over because they ran out of battery. It was a content story. Tesla refuted that. It was an interesting piece of news. But people who still drove the Tesla said this was one of the best cars I've driven. They absolutely loved it. From there, you got the Model X, which is something Elon Musk decided to create because he has a very large family and he wanted a car for his family. And that ultimately led to Model 3, which was his car for the masses. And it was supposed to be Model E and followed by a Model Y, which spelled sexy. That's Elon with his humor. But then Ford decided not to release the patent for Model E because they had the Model T and stuff. So they had to use Model 3. But if you look at it and all four cars combined, it actually still spells sexy because the Model 3 is stylized in the way where the vertical line for 3 is missing. Anyways, moving on. So then that's where we have today with Tesla, their 4 flagship cars. But there's a whole bunch of new cars coming in, and they have obviously their semi-truck, which has been spoken about for a few years, which is really going to change the way freight transportation is going to be done. And they have the Cybertruck, which you actually I know are very excited about.
I put in an order for one, Shashank, so
Yes,
I'm very excited about it. Yes.
But the car I am most excited about is the new Roadster, which is completely built by Tesla. It plans to be, when it goes to production, one of the fastest production cars, competing against the best supercars in the world at a fraction of the price. I think the price they are targeting is somewhere around 200,000 or 250,000, which is still a lot, but it's still so much more cheaper than some of the other supercars, which are north of 500,000 and close to $1 million. So that is the journey of Tesla so far. And as a car company, as Motorhead, I'm very excited.
Interesting. So, yeah, I think fantastic points, Shashank. So, and I think I've used the Model 3, and I own a Model 3 myself. You've driven it, and I guess we can both vouch that's probably the best car that we've driven. And remember, Model 3 is like a low end version, so you can imagine how much better the S's and the X's will probably be. And I'm really excited to see the Cybertruck as well. So let's see.
To
Fingers
that point,
crossed on that.
actually, to that point, actually,
Mhm.
very few cars that I've driven that I've put such a broad smile on my face when I've driven it.
I
I've driven
remember
a
that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've driven an M3 and it gave me a lot of pleasure. But the joy I got driving from the M3 was probably nowhere close to the joy I got while driving your Model 3. It was so much of fun. I still remember. I could not stop talking about it for days together.
Yes, I remember that, Shashank. Yes. Yeah. So yeah. So moving on real quick about what I would call, or who I would call the crazy genius that is Elon Musk. So what are your thoughts on him, and what's your opinion? And just as a disclaimer, we've been planning this video for about like 4 months now. It's just a coincidence that just a few days back, when we are actually recording this video, he turned out to be the richest man in the world. But when we started planning this, I don't think he was close. And so just as a disclaimer, but again, back to the main thing, Shashank. So what are your thoughts on Elon Musk?
So first of all, I would call them stars aligning.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yes.
okay,
Hmm.
so the interesting story about Tesla and Elon. Elon was not a founder. Uh,
Yeah.
it was started by uh, Tarpaning and Strobel and a couple of others. Elon basically was flush with money from his PayPal deal where he sold it to eBay, and he was looking to invest in a whole bunch of different things, including at that time investing in SpaceX. And these guys reached out to him, and that's when he saw the potential of what Tesla could be. And this was in the early to mid 2000s, right? And he took a company that was basically built by some really smart, enthusiastic people. Uh, but yeah, Mark Eberhard and Tarpaning were the brains behind the original version, but they didn't know how to run this as an operation. Elon comes in, gives them a lot of cash, and at some point in time, when he realized the leadership needed somebody who could push this through, and that's where Elon stepped in to become the CEO, and that's where his drive has taken Tesla to where it is today. That being said, Elon Musk is somebody I have been fascinated about for a long time. He has his good things, he has his bad things.
Yeah,
I'm not a
his
fanboy.
tweets.
I appreciate what he does. I look up to him, but I'm also a big critic of him. But that aside, the way Elon Musk thinks fundamentally is very different. He looks at
Yeah.
things from a first principles perspective, looks at how can a specific problem be looked at in multiple different viewpoints, sort of the traditional viewpoint, and then looks at disrupting it. And that's what
Mhm.
you get with Tesla. There were a whole bunch of naysayers for a good 12 to 15 years, I would say.
Yeah.
And in the past 2, 3 years, people are like, oh my God, Tesla is a great car. But people who knew or read about Tesla and have been following Tesla for a while knew Tesla, this day of reckoning for Tesla would come.
True. True. That's very true,
Yeah.
Shashank. Yeah. And I completely agree. I think you know I'm a big fanboy. I think um, I think he's a genius. He's a little crazy. I think there are you've seen some of his tweets and stuff like that, but overall I think he's amazing, right? And I think his vision of making the world a better place, right? Sustainable energy and all of that, I think is just brilliant. I mean, it's mind-blowing, right? And so, moving on, Shashank, do you have any thoughts on the cult following and, the cars and stuff like that? Any specific thoughts on that? Because, of course, you did talk about how the cars are great and stuff like that. But any thoughts on that, Shashank?
So I think Tesla and Elon have a very similar cult following to
Yeah.
Apple and Jobs. And I am actually a semi fanboy of Apple and Jobs, similar to the way I am a semi fanboy of Tesla and Elon. Although I am a critic of both of them as well, of Jobs and things because of their work style and certain things they've done. That being said, the reason those two companies started, which is Apple and Tesla, was to disrupt something which was fundamental and make it more accessible and make a better version of what is there today. And they had two inspirational leaders who drove them to a level of perfection or a level of optimization and performance which shocked the world and showed the world what things could be. And that's why they got cult following. That's why Jobs got his cult following along with Apple. That's why Tesla has got its cult following. Apple has been traditionally known to make something absolutely easy to use. For anybody who's driven a Tesla, you realize how easy it's to drive a Tesla, how amazing it's to drive a Tesla. Similar to how easy and amazing it is to use an iPhone. Although I know you have a problem with that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I have a different school of thought on Apple and Steve Jobs, but I completely agree with you. I mean, I think I have a work phone that's an iPhone, and I think it's very easy to use and stuff like that. And of course, I completely agree with your statement on Elon Musk as well, saying he does have a cult following, and a lot of it has to do with the personality and the products that they are responsible bringing into this world, right? I think so. That's absolutely true, Shashank. So next thing, Shashank, is quickly about what else and how can Tesla spread its wings, right? So I think it acquired SolarCity and stuff like that. So can you talk a little bit about that, or like what else is there, like in terms of large scale energy storage and stuff like that, right? So any thoughts on that?
So I think Elon, when he started Tesla, or when he was basically flush with cash from the PayPal deal, and he's looking for his next big gig, I think he very early realized that the way human growth and consumption is currently taking place, it is not sustainable. We are going to hit a breaking point. And he basically channeled his energies into two specific areas. One is growing humans beyond planet Earth, and hence SpaceX, which we'll talk about at some point in the future. And then the second part, which is how do we save the planet from its self-destructive behaviors of humans? And from that point of view, the thread that got him is how do we make energy creation and consumption more sustainable? And that led him to ask the question is, what can we do with cars? And that's where he's like, electric cars means less fuel burn, which potentially can make for a better mode of transportation. But also from the same thread of how do you make energy consumption more sustainable is his cousins, along with Elon, during one of the Burning Mans, I think it was somewhere in the late 2000s is when I think one of the Burning Man said, they came with the idea of basically generating energy from solar rooftop. His cousins took over and tried scaling it, but there ran into issues because scaling rooftop solar is not that easy. And at some point, Elon decided that he's going to take SolarCity under his wing. And that's when the SolarCity acquisition came. And mind you, this was after SolarCity going public. right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So then solars, and that became energy generation. But then solar as an energy management system is great, but the problem is when there's no sunlight, what do you do? That's where he starts answering the question with batteries. Batteries help you give you energy when you need it and
Hmm.
there's no source to generate it. So that's when the whole, and he already had the battery know-how with Tesla. He said if we can have 100 kilowatt battery in a car, why not scale it up? Because they're all modular. And that's when I forget the place in Australia where they installed the mega pack,
Yeah.
right? And I think they've done the same thing in Hawaii, and they're doing another bunch of other places.
Hmm.
And along with that, if you look at what Elon is doing, he's trying to figure out how better to handle rooftop solar. So from this original iteration, which is just having a panel over your current roof, he's like, let's make the roof itself a solar panel. And that's where we are with solar roofs V3. But the problem was installation was hard. So it's like, how do we make installation easier? So they're improving over there. So there is energy consumption in the Tesla cars. There's
Hmm.
the energy generation in the solar rooftops. Then there's the battery packs. Along with it, obviously, he's figured out how to have better energy management. And when it comes to energy management, one of the things he's looking at is HVACs. Tesla cars
Yeah.
actually are really good at managing their energy, right? So how does he take that and get them into your houses? So then the bang for the buck on your solar roof is that much better.
Hmm.
And there is also talk of creating microgrids. Other companies have been doing it. There's a lot of government push for it as well, where a subdivision can have its own battery pack, which is where the excess load from from a given house and its battery pack is fed into this specific um, grid of this battery storage,
Hmm.
which then helps the subdivision. And then if the subdivision has exceeded its capacity, it can give it to the larger division. So it's almost like how a transformer does a step down to get to your house from the power plant. This is almost like a reverse of that. And
Interesting.
this way, the energy loss in transmission is also minimized.
Hmm.
The other thing which Tesla is trying to do is combine its solar roof along with the battery storage and generate electricity when it's cheapest so it can get stored in the battery, right? So, for example, or release energy from its batteries when needed when the energy costs are the highest. So
Hmm.
then, because you can't live off the grid right now because solar panels are not that advanced, but they will be hopefully in the future.
Hmm.
So all those things coming together in energy management, that trifecta is basically what's going to help Elon Musk's goal of making energy sustainable, energy usage and management and consumption sustainable, will be achieved by these three pieces.
Interesting. Interesting. And so, on that same note, Shashank, what do you think is next for Tesla and Elon Musk?
So some of the other things I think which Tesla will try doing is going to the trifecta of um, energy generation, energy storage and management, and energy consumption.
Hmm.
um, how can you sell cars? Okay, because selling electrical cars is better. So one of the things they already did in the past is basically just open source their entire set of patents for a
Yeah.
while, right? The other thing they're going to do is potentially reduce the cost of insurance because that's something which is out of their control. Uh, Today, the way insurance is handled, there's a lot of overhead. It's already a complex industry. Tesla wants to get in the insurance game so that they can reduce the premiums because they already have the
Hmm.
data, they have the know-how, and they think fundamentally Tesla cars are safer and hence cost of repair should be cheaper and reduce the cost. That makes cost of ownership also lower, which would help drive ownership. So that would wean off a lot of people from using gas guzzling cars and rather use electric cars, specifically Tesla.
Hmm.
There's a lot of innovation happening around solar generation. And that is where I think so. You'll have version V5, V6, V7, where installation will be as fast as regular roofing, or maybe even be cheaper. Energy efficiency is much higher, whatnot. The whole thing. Then there's battery. So recently, there was, I think this was in August, maybe I could be wrong, or 2020 is when you had Tesla Battery Day, where they spoke about how they plan to own the entire supply chain, where they'll be buying, they'll be sourcing their own lithium, which will be then used for the lithium ion batteries.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be making them tablets so that there's higher density, basically trying to get a 4x jump on what's there today.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing they're looking at is taking these old batteries and either refurbishing them or basically extracting or completely recycling them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that way they made extraction of lithium, which would potentially become at some point in time a drain on Earth and become a source of what do you say, climate change and climate problems. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
let's make this a sustainable thing, similar to like how we do with aluminium,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there is that piece to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And then the last piece is, as part of energy management, they're like, how do you make a house better, right? And not use as much energy. Some of the biggest energy, what do you say, consumers is your HVAC system. And then obviously you got your washing machines, your dishwasher and stuff, but your HVAC is still the biggest hog of energy. And they've gone after it and they're trying to redesign that because they've got a good handle on the cars. And they're like, let's try using the same technology in a regular home HVAC system.
Interesting. Interesting.
So continuing with what I'm saying, I have discussed mainly about the US marketplace. The
Mm-hmm.
world is not the US. There's
True.
a whole bunch
Yeah.
of other countries out there. I think one of the biggest things Elon is trying to do with Tesla is make sure they are there in every country possible with all their products. I know they're big in Europe. They started gaining traction in China. I've heard stories about them trying to get into India very soon. They're probably going to try getting into Africa as well, parts of South America. They're already in Australia. So I think once the global expansion happens, I think it will make a big difference. The other big area where I think Tesla is going to make a push is around transportation, around uh, electric boats, possibly.
Mm.
I know that's a tough challenge, but that could be an area which will be explored. There is a lot of talk about electric aeroplanes and aircrafts. Potentially, Tesla can get in there with that battery technology. I think there's a lot to be explored, but I think this is just one of the few avenues which I think I'm thinking about right now.
Makes sense. Yeah. And I think it's fantastic you say that. And I don't think for Elon Musk any of this will be impossible, right? I think let's see how he thinks about electric airplanes and boats and stuff like that. So it's amazing you say that, and I think it's an amazing thought, Shashank. So I guess we discussed what's next for Tesla. So now let's discuss about what's next in the video series. So folks, this was just a primer, right? So I think we just spoke at a very high level about what the company is, who Elon Musk is, and the good and maybe sometimes the not so good as well. But let's in the next video series talk about a deep dive and go into the different potential businesses and the what next of a lot of these businesses as well.